Did you know that Yuki Tsunoda could be out of Red Bull and out of Formula One this year? Although it seemed like his big opportunity, the statistics tell a different story. Before we continue, tell me in the comments, does Tsunoda deserve to stay at Red Bull, or has his time already run out? Who is emerging as his replacement, and what is Red Bull really thinking? Today we're going to analyze the numbers, statements, and moves that could mark the end of Tsunoda's journey at Red Bull. And the threat is no less significant. Isaac Hadjar is getting closer. Yuki Tsunoda joined Red Bull Racing in 2025 as a risky but promising gamble. He was promoted to the main team, replacing Liam Lawson after just 2 races. The idea was clear: to give the Japanese driver a definitive opportunity at the top level, confident that his experience and development at AlphaTauri, now Racing Bulls, would prepare him to face the most demanding challenge of his career. However, what seemed like a strategic decision designed to stabilize the second seat quickly became a source of internal pressure for the team. In his first 8 races with Red Bull, Tsunoda has barely managed to score 10 points, placing him in 15th place in the Drivers' Championship. But the most alarming aspect is not his place in the standings, but the direct comparison with his teammate. Max Verstappen has accumulated 155 of Red Bull's total 162 points so far this season. In other words, Tsunoda has contributed only 7 points in that same period. The gap between the two isn't just overwhelming, it's unsustainable for a team that's used to dominating the Constructors' Championship and now finds itself in a surprising 4th place. This drop in collective performance, which was previously unthinkable, has set off alarm bells within the team. For Red Bull, the second seat has always been a delicate issue. Since the departure of Sergio Perez, no driver has managed to establish himself alongside Verstappen. And Tsunoda, despite having the support of Honda and having shown speed in the past, is beginning to get caught in the same pattern of instability that affected Pierre Gasly, Alex Albon, and Sergio Perez. Expectations were high, but the reality is changing. Today, Tsunoda is forced to justify every race, every point, and every on-track decision. The team can no longer afford mediocre results if it wants to compete for the title again. And the big question is whether the Japanese can turn this situation around in time, or whether, like others before him, he'll be cut out of the Red Bull system when the pressure becomes unbearable. As the weeks go by and the pressure on Yuki Tsunoda intensifies, the rumors in the paddock have only grown. And while Red Bull has officially maintained a rhetoric of support for the Japanese driver, behind the scenes the story is very different. The name that has begun to be mentioned most as a possible replacement is Isaac Hadjar, a young talent emerging from Red Bull's junior program who currently competes with Racing Bulls and who has impressed with his performance since his Formula One debut. Hadjar is not only surprised with his speed, but with something that Red Bull deeply values: consistency under pressure. In his first 10 races, he has accumulated 21 points, becoming the best among the 6 rookies who made their debut this season. Unlike Tsunoda, Hadjar has managed to remain firmly in the points for several consecutive weekends, demonstrating a maturity that is rare for a driver who is only 20 years old. This stable results, coupled with his ability to quickly adapt to the pace of F1, has sparked interest among the team's top brass. Most striking is that Hadjar has clearly outperformed Liam Lawson, the same driver who was dropped by Red Bull after just 2 races and whom Tsunoda replaced. In qualifying, the Frenchman has won 7 of 8 head-to-head duels against Lawson, and in the race, he has finished ahead in all of their combined starts. This superiority has not gone unnoticed within the team, especially by figures like Helmut Marko, who have closely followed his progress from the lower categories. Furthermore, several press reports, including reliable sources such as BBC F1, have begun to suggest that Hadjar could be promoted even before the end of the season if Tsunoda's performance does not improve significantly. Journalist Andrew Benson himself has stated that Tsunoda looks certain to be ruled out, a phrase that has sparked all kinds of speculation about a change in the second Red Bull seat. But there's something that makes these rumors even more interesting. Hadjar himself has publicly stated that he doesn't feel ready for the Red Bull challenge. In a recent interview, he confessed that "It looks complicated when I look at Yuki and Liam," acknowledging that he doesn't yet feel ready to make the jump. This humility has been interpreted by some as a strategy to avoid additional pressure, but it has also been denied by team members such as Laurent Mekies, who stated that a driver, should always be ready for a faster car. In this scenario, the rumor is no longer just a rumor. The possibility of Red Bull replacing Tsunoda with Hadjar is no longer far-fetched, but an increasingly tangible option. With each race in which the Japanese driver fails to score points or finishes behind his teammate, the margin narrows. Meanwhile, Hadjar continues to add points, proving that he's closer than ever to receiving the most important call of his career. From the outside, Red Bull has attempted to maintain a diplomatic approach regarding Yuki Tsunoda's situation, but its public statements reveal growing internal tensions. Team principal Christian Horner has been one of the Japanese driver's main defenders, at least in the media. In various interviews, he has stressed that Tsunoda needs time and support to adapt to the car, and that the key to improving his performance is regaining confidence behind the wheel. However, this understanding comes with a clear warning. If he wants to remain with the team for next season, he must improve, and do so soon. Horner also addressed a recurring theme, the second seat problem at Red Bull. He admitted that not everything is the driver's fault, and that the RB21 car is particularly demanding. According to him, it is a single-seater with a very narrow operating window, making it a challenge even for experienced drivers. In this context, Horner has attempted to justify part of Tsunoda's poor performance, pointing out that not all drivers are able to adapt to this type of technical setup. Despite this, he made it clear that Red Bull cannot afford to keep a development driver indefinitely if he doesn't meet expectations. His statement was straightforward. You can't have a driver on the support team for 5 years. Either you let him go, or you look for something different. Helmut Marko, for his part, was much less cautious with his words. In his remarks, he mixed praise with harsh criticism. On the one hand, he acknowledged that Tsunoda is the first teammate of Max Verstappen's to have come close, even partially, to his level. He considers him a driver with speed and emphasized that he is getting better and better. But on the other hand, he didn't hesitate to express disappointment after races like the one in Spain, where Tsunoda qualified last despite having had good pace in practice. Marko was clear. He still makes mistakes under pressure. And in a team like Red Bull, that can be lethal to a driver's continuity. Marko also sought to calm the rumors, assuring them that Tsunoda will finish the season. But even that statement, which in theory provides stability, seems more like a temporary respite than a long-term guarantee. Red Bull's track record of decisions shows that when they lose patience, changes can be immediate. The statement, while seemingly firm, sounds more like a veiled warning. The margin for error has been reduced to a minimum. Max Verstappen also made interesting statements about the situation. Far from simply repeating the team's official line, the world champion offered a reflection that highlights a deeper structural problem. When asked about Tsunoda's poor performance, he responded that Yuki wasn't a bad driver and that these types of situations had occurred many times with his previous teammates. The phrase was clear. This has been going on for a long time. Maybe that's a sign of what? You can decide for yourself. With that comment, Verstappen wasn't just defending his teammate, he was also pointing the finger at the team. For him, the second seat problem isn't a question of individual talent, but rather of how Red Bull develops and configures its cars. By designing cars almost exclusively tailored to their own driving style, the other drivers are forced to adapt to a machine that wasn't designed for them. And when they don't get it right quickly, the team simply replaces them. If Red Bull decides to replace Yuki Tsunoda before the end of the season, or simply not renew his contract for 2026, the consequences could be significant, not only for his career, but also for the team's sporting and strategic structure. First and foremost, Red Bull would be sending a strong message. There is no room for inconsistent performances, even if the driver has experience, commercial backing, or a history within the junior program. It would be a new chapter in the well-known story of the second seat, which has seen talented drivers emerge, but lacking the stability to establish themselves alongside Max Verstappen. Tsunoda's departure would open up an immediate opportunity for Isaac Hadjar, the most likely candidate within the Red Bull team. His promotion, beyond the media impact, would represent a significant shift in the team's commitment to young talent. Hadjar has demonstrated consistency, speed, and an uncommon mental capacity for someone with such little experience. His arrival at the main team would not only represent a driver change, but a clear signal that Red Bull is willing to invest in a new generation, even if it means taking some initial adaptation risks. From a technical and sporting perspective, Hadjar's entry would also change the team's internal approach. Tsunoda, despite his ups and downs, already knows the car, understands the dynamics of a working group, and has built a stable relationship with the engineers. Replacing him would mean restarting part of that process with a rookie driver, which in a tight season can have a real cost in terms of development and competitive pace. Red Bull would have to balance that learning curve with the urgency of scoring points in the Constructors' Championship, especially in a year where McLaren, Ferrari, and Mercedes have raised their game. On a personal level, for Tsunoda, leaving Red Bull would mean more than just losing a seat. Honda has already confirmed that it will stop financially supporting him at the end of his season, coinciding with its final split with Red Bull. Without the support of the Japanese brand, and without a current contract with another team, his options on the grid are considerably reduced. Aston Martin, Honda's new partner for 2026, has both of its seats filled, complicating any potential transition. In other words, leaving Red Bull could be the beginning of the end of his Formula One career. Finally, there is an aspect that is often underestimated: the impact on the Red Bull ecosystem. With Hadjar in the main team, a seat would be freed up at Racing Bulls, opening the door to a chain of moves within the junior program. Drivers like Arvid Lindblad, who are excelling in Formula 2, could advance in that chain, accelerating their promotion processes. Thus, Tsunoda's departure would not only be an individual decision, but a key piece on the change board that Red Bull is preparing for the new era that will begin with the arrival of its own power unit in 2026. The coming months will be decisive for Yuki Tsunoda's future at Red Bull. With the 2025 season underway, and the fight for the Constructors' Championship tighter than in previous years, the team cannot afford to continue losing ground. Red Bull no longer dominates with the ease of other seasons, and every point lost by the second-place driver weighs more than usual. In this context, Tsunoda's room for maneuver has been reduced to a minimum. He needs results, and he needs them now. From a technical perspective, no major lifeline is expected for him. Red Bull has made it clear that there will be no major updates to the RB21 for the remainder of the year. Rather than seeking more pure performance, the focus will be on stabilizing the car and extending its operating window, something that could benefit drivers less suited to the car. But even with this change in approach, Tsunoda will need to show that he can take advantage of a more stable technical foundation, especially on weekends where qualifying pace has been his greatest weakness. Internally, the pressure won't come solely from on-track performance. The reports, technical meetings, and constant comparisons with Verstappen will continue. Red Bull will evaluate every detail, from long-run pace to the quality of the feedback Tsunoda provides to the engineers. In a team so focused on high performance, it's not enough to have a couple of good results in isolation. It requires consistency, maturity, and visible growth race after race. At the same time, the environment won't be static. Isack Hadjar will continue racing for Racing Bulls, and as long as he performs well, his candidacy will strengthen. Every point he scores, every weekend he outperforms his teammate, will be a silent declaration that he's ready for something more. That's why, even if Red Bull doesn't make an immediate change, Hadjar's performance will be a permanent variable in Tsunoda's equation. Yuki Tsunoda's situation has ceased to be a tactical mystery and has become an open countdown. Red Bull can no longer afford a second driver who doesn't deliver consistent results, and the numbers speak for themselves. While Verstappen sustains the team, Tsunoda struggles to stay in the points. In a championship as competitive as the current one, that gap becomes unsustainable. Rumors about his replacement are not only credible, but increasingly logical. With a rookie like Isack Hadjar scoring points and demonstrating maturity from day one, the pressure increases. And when you add in the withdrawal of Honda's financial support at the end of the year, Tsunoda's future in Formula One is practically tied to his immediate on-track performance. Given this scenario, Red Bull is already looking toward 2026. The team wants to be prepared for the new engine era with a solid lineup, aligned with its technical and commercial objectives. Now I want to know your opinion. Do you think Tsunoda has what it takes to turn things around, or is it time to make way for a new generation at Red Bull? I'll read your comments.